We all think we know the story of Rosa Parks, but the simple version we usually hear, well, that's not the whole picture. Today, we're going to dig into the real story of a lifelong fighter for justice.
So, the story you've probably heard is that she was just an old, tired seamstress who didn't feel like moving at the end of a long day. It's a simple, easy to remember image, right? But is that what really happened?
This quote really gets to the heart of it. It wasn't about her feet being sore. It was about being profoundly, deeply tired of injustice. Her refusal to move wasn't a moment of weakness at all. It was a moment of incredible strength.
Okay, so if it wasn't just a random act, who was Rosa Parks before that day? The thing is, her famous stand was actually the result of decades of believing in a cause and preparing for a moment just like this. Let's look at the timeline. From an early age, Rosa really valued education. Earning her high school diploma back in 1933, that was a huge deal, especially when so few African Americans had that opportunity. And just 10 years later, she formally joined the fight for civil rights with the NAACP. And you have to understand, her job wasn't just taking notes. As secretary, she was on the front lines, documenting all the awful, unjust things people were facing every day. This work made her an investigator, a strategist. She knew exactly how the system of discrimination worked, and she was learning how to challenge it. To really get why her saying no was so incredibly brave, we have to understand the world she was trying to change, a world that was literally built on a system of strict racial separation.
Now, this system had an official name, Jim Crow laws. And these weren't just, social customs or suggestions. These were the law of the land, designed specifically to keep Black citizens separate and unequal in every single part of their lives.
And the bus was a perfect example of what this meant day to day. Just imagine this. You have to pay your fare at the front of the bus, then get off, and walk all the way to the back door just to get on again. These weren't just inconveniences. They were daily, calculated humiliations. And that brings us to the moment that changed everything. All that history, all that experience as an activist, all that exhaustion with injustice. It all came together on a single bus ride home from work. Here's how it all went down. She got on and found a seat in the designated section. But as the bus filled up, the driver demanded that she and 3 other Black passengers give up their entire row for just one white passenger. The other 3 people moved, but Rosa Parks, she quietly held her ground. Her arrest was the spark that lit the fire. See, local civil rights leaders knew her well. They knew about her strong character and her deep commitment to the cause. She was the perfect person to represent this fight. This wasn't just some random arrest, it was the test case they'd been waiting for to challenge segregation in court. Her arrest triggered one of the most powerful and effective protests in American history. The entire Black community of Montgomery decided that if they couldn't ride the bus with dignity, they just wouldn't ride it at all. 381 days. Just let that sink in for a minute. That is more than a year of walking, of organizing carpools, of incredible personal sacrifice from an entire community, all of it done in peaceful protest. And let me tell you, this was not easy. People lost their jobs, they faced constant threats and intimidation. But they responded with incredible organization. They set up this complex system of carpools, and local churches became these hubs for strategy and keeping everyone's morale up. It was an absolute masterclass in unified, nonviolent protest. So while this massive boycott was happening on the streets of Montgomery, another battle was being fought in the courtrooms. Rosa Parks' legal case was making its way all the way up to the highest court in the United States. So, after 381 days of walking and sacrifice, the legal challenge finally reached its last stop, the Supreme Court. The whole country was basically holding its breath, waiting to hear what they would decide. And then, victory! The court declared that separating people on public buses violated the Constitution. It was this huge, landmark decision that proved that the whole idea of segregation, that separate could somehow be equal, was a lie. But wait. The story doesn't end there. Winning in court was a massive victory, for sure. But what happened to the woman who started it all? Well, her life's work continued long after the boycott ended. You might think things got easier, but life in Montgomery was actually really tough for the Parks family after the boycott. They faced constant threats, and they couldn't find work. So they moved north to Detroit, and what did Rosa do? She immediately continued her fight, working for a congressman and tackling big issues like fair housing. She never, ever stopped being an activist. And eventually, the world really started to recognize her incredible contribution. She received the nation's highest civilian honors. The title, the Mother of the Civil Rights Movement, became hers. And when she passed away, she was given a tribute in the U.S. Capitol, an honor that's usually reserved for presidents and other major national figures.
She lived to be 92 years old. Think about that. A long life that saw incredible change. Change that she herself had set in motion with one quiet, powerful act of defiance that was rooted in a lifetime of conviction. So the real story here is that Rosa Parks wasn't just a tired woman who stumbled into history. No, she was a trained, dedicated activist who chose her moment. Her story shows us that a single, principled stand, when it's backed by courage and a whole community, can literally change the world. And that leaves us all with a pretty powerful question to think about.